My name is Brian Tucker. I'm professor of New Testament at Moody Theological Seminary and the author of the Cascade Companion volume Reading 1 Corinthians. I'm also on the editorial board for a series from Cascade entitled New Testament After Supersessionism. Why a book on reading 1 Corinthians? Isn't it just enough just to pick the letter up and just read it itself? Well, yes, that is a great place to start. But reading 1 Corinthians serves as a roadmap to introduce you to a lot of the contemporary concerns of identity and ethnicity, sexuality and gender and economics and leadership. So what it does is it provides a coherent way to understand the letter through the lens of identity formation. So yes, grab the book and read it, and grab the letter and read it. When you think about the uniqueness of a small volume in the Cascade Companions on reading 1 Corinthians, what's unique about it is it offers insight into two specific areas. One is the way existing identities continue to matter, and the second is seeing Paul within Judaism. But the first one is really the premise for the book, which is that 1 Corinthians 7:17-24, where Paul gives instructions to those who are Gentiles to stay as Gentiles and those that are Jews to stay as Jews, really guides the way that he sees existing identities to continue to matter within the Christ movement. All too often, people look at those identities and think, well, now that I'm in Christ and I'm a new creation, what was before doesn't really matter. And so what you end up with is a lot of misreadings of some of the specific ethical issues that are in the letter. And this provides a way to kind of organize Paul's teaching on these issues of how our new life and old life in Christ join together in ways that provide insight that might be overlooked otherwise. Think about how busy you are, and you wonder to yourself, why in the world would I take time to read another book on a letter that I already know about its contents? Well, what's been amazing in the last 10 or 15 years has been a shift in Pauline studies generally, and 1 Corinthians studies specifically, of seeing Paul within Second Temple Judaism. And so one of the key passages for this is 1 Corinthians 9:19-23. This is a passage where Paul talks about his mission, and to the Jews he became a Jew, and to the Gentile he became a Gentile. And so the traditional reading is basically, you know what, his Jewishness no longer matters now that he's in Christ. But now there's an awareness that Paul's Jewishness is seen throughout the entire letter. And what ends up happening is that it becomes a key way for us to think about issues related to existing identities, but in this case, the relationship between Judaism and the earliest Christ movement, and offers ways to see them in continuity rather than an early parting of the ways, which is often a debated point among Pauline studies. One of the useful aspects of reading the letter of 1 Corinthians through the lens of social identity theory is that it opens up ideas for us how we apply those to our lives today. In social identity theory, they talk about salience. Salience is the idea that an identity is ready to be acted upon in any given situation. And when you read the circumstances, whether it's gender, politics, ethnicity, sexuality, and what we see in this struggling small group of Christ followers in Roman Corinth is they wrestled with a lot of the same issues we wrestle with today. But what happens is people really don't have guidance for how we apply those today. Social identity argues that one of the best ways to do this is to have your subordinate and your subgroup identities working simultaneously. And I'm convinced that Paul's doing the same thing in 1 Corinthians. And so what he's doing, he's saying, hey, there's a great way for you to figure out who you are in Christ while maintaining your unique identities in Christ at the same time. So you think about that and he goes, well, that sounds pretty abstract. So what would that really look like? Well, let's think gender, for example. 1 Corinthians 7, there's a lot of discussion there about gender and about marriage. And there's these groups, and the ones describe widows and others are described virgins. And what those are secondary gender identities. And oftentimes in faith communities, the big debates in our broader culture about gender, and they don't like people identifying themselves in secondary gender categories. But we see Paul doing that. So what it does is it provides leaders and those that are following Christ today with theological and social insights to help people navigate those secondary gender identities that they're interested in thinking about or pursuing or looking to be transformed.